Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Reptile Rejects. It's Dominic Carbonneau here. Michael Gillian will not be joining us this week. He's at the Western Reptile Show in Canada there and enjoying himself and decided he would not join us because, he's having too much of a good time. So it's just going to be me and our guest today. Our guest this week will be Riley Jimison, which I'll bring him on in a few seconds. Just before, I actually ended up talking to one of my good buddies who's in charge of the Canadian Reptile Expo or the Breeders Expo, which is the biggest reptile expo in Canada, which is happening September 13th and 14th. And he told me that if I wanted to give a couple of pair of tickets for anybody who's willing to come, to just give them away. So if there's anybody interested, how about just leave a comment either on any of our platform and whether it be Spotify or Apple Podcasts or YouTube or anything like that, and we'll pick a couple of people at random and give pairs of tickets. Except for that, our guest this week, Riley Jimison, fellow Morelia breeder, somebody I've always enjoyed thoroughly talking to. So since it's only me, I figured I'd pick somebody that takes care of animals that I know, and it's going to be much easier to talk without having Michael here. So, Riley, how's it going?
It's going well, man. Thank you for having me on. It's good to chat with you.
Hey, happy to have you on, man. So, how have you been? How's life treating you?
It's been interesting. Throwing curveballs my way, but we roll on, wake up every day and accomplish whatever goals we can and, just get through it. Yeah, it's been interesting transitioning into involuntarily being a full-time breeder at the moment, but making it work.
Sounds good. So, I think the majority of people know you, right? So, but if you want to give us maybe a 5 minute synopsis of who's Riley and where
Sure.
you come from, like the lowdown, so people can get a bit of an idea here.
Yeah, absolutely. Sort of an oddball in the family. I don't come from like a family of animal lovers or reptile people by any stretch of the imagination, but I was always fascinated with snakes as a kid. Pushed it off and got my first king snake at like 9 or 10, and was always infatuated with them. Fast forward to um, sophomore year of college, I'm out of the dorms. You start looking into keeping reptiles in my own place. Now that I'm out of the house, grew up with tons of like bearded dragons and snakes and geckos and stuff as a kid, and dogs, cats, and all that. But when I was finally on my own and able to get my own thing, is kind of when I went a little crazy and found out, there's this whole private sector of it all. So while I was diving into becoming a zookeeper professionally, in my hobby side of things, I was finding the reptile world and just going down the rabbit hole. So yeah, I did 10 years of working in AZA accredited institutions as a reptile keeper, and then transitioned into working in the private sector, managing a breeding facility and shop. And during all of that, have just kept snakes and reptiles on the side and bred just like on a hobby level and let it grow to where it is, to the point where um, I might be in that transitional moment where, it's growing into its own full-time job, but we'll see. It's been a lot of fun, and I got over 200 snakes in this room right here, and it's mostly carpet pythons.
Damn. So let's go over that collection just so I get a bit of an idea of what you actually keep. So let's exclude the carpet pythons right now. So excluding all carpets, what else do you keep?
I have womas. I have four Apadora, the Papuan pythons. I have some crested geckos, some Australian golden spiny-tailed geckos. I have one chondro. I have rosy boas, western hognose, corn snakes. What else? What else? What else? Russian tortoises, isopods. I have one White's tree frog at the moment, and yeah, I think that covers everybody.
I was gonna say, fair to say, a lot of those are probably just pets, right? Because you're naming a lot of one species or little things like that.
The frog is definitely pet. The hognose, I went from zero to like a dozen real fast and then bred some, and now I've got a lot of those. The chondro is a one-off for the moment. The Apadora, I have 2.2. The Womas, I have a pair. The crested geckos, I have 2.1. One male is just a rescue that I rescued back when I lived in Santa Barbara. He was literally in a 10-gallon tank on the side of a street.
Oh, that's sad.
Um, yeah. So I have him forever. He's awesome. And then I have a pair of Dalmatians that, just have something fun and find baby geckos once in a while because it is very exciting. So I have those. The golden tail geckos, I've got 1.3 of those, so that is a breeding project that's been doing really well for me finally this year. Yeah, the Russian tortoises, they're pets, but I do have a pair of them. I've had my male for over 10 years and got him when he was like, little half dollar, 50-cent piece, like inch and a half across sort of deal. And he's now an adult trying to dominate this female that I've had for the last few years. And I just I can find something that I love in all animals, not just reptiles, but reptiles we're so blessed because we have access to be able to keep them in our homes and bring them into our lives in a different way. Um, I actually have to exercise a lot of restraint because I love it all. Tarantulas, centipedes, everything. I've kept everything. So yeah.
Fair enough. Do you ever find it hard to have animals that are all of, let's say, insectivore, omnivores? You've got herbivores, you've got carnivores. Like, I don't know. To me, I'm listening to you talk, and I'm like, oh my god, you got to get all these different food sources ready, and they're probably all eating on different things. Like your Russian tortoise, I imagine you're feeding them every day, right, daily, and
Yep.
then your crested, maybe every 2 days, you're feeding them. I don't know, like I've cared for a couple of those, but like all I'm thinking is, man, that's usually people tend to, if they have various animals, they tend to stick to one or two food source. But you've literally got every food sources in there.
Yeah, I cover the spread, man. And it changes from year to year. If you were to like take a little snapshot of what I've got in the population, it's very different every time, but I have access to feeder insects pretty regularly. The tortoises, fortunately, they love dandelion greens, which you can get at any sort of Rayleigh's grocery store for usually like $2 a bundle. They're pretty cheap. Um, and so they eat really affordably. I get crickets and bugs from the local shops. And yeah, having a background in zoos, I'm used to sort of mentally compartmentalizing like, okay, for animals that are herbivorous, if they are tortoises and things, we're probably going to feed them every day. If they're lizards, it just depends on what type of lizard and seasonal variations. The tortoises go to sleep during the winter, so I get like a break for 5, 6 months in that regard. And yeah, I've just kind of got like little schedules for everybody. Just little things that I remember. Like it usually revolves around like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday routine of those being like the main feed days for more insectivorous animals or things like that. But yeah, it's just a lot of attention to detail. There are
Yeah.
definitely times where it can get away from me. Like if there's a lot of family vacations going on, I kind of do the bare minimum just to get everybody through me being away for, 4 or 5 days. But um, yeah, just make it work. There's a reason why I don't have a lot more high maintenance, like daily attending animals at the moment. But, if I find myself really sticking to this full-time thing and going expanding down the road, then something that needs a little more daily food and attention, or colubrids that eat a little bit more, isn't necessarily a huge challenge if I'm more available. But
Maybe monitors in there that requires a lot of time.
yeah, monitors require a lot of time, even if you get them onto like an affordable food source, like say you've got like a good source for chicks and it's not a big monitor. They just, there are a lot of cleaning, a lot of egg looking, checking the lights, checking temperatures. It's a different level of attention. Um, yeah, you definitely need to spend time with them on a different level. And then, a snake bite is no big deal. You can kind of just brush it off or just take it and move on. But a lizard bite is often quite a bit more consequential. So there's more to it for sure.
Yeah.
I've kept monitors, only one at home, but I've worked with plenty at work, and I always love the fact that like I get the full on experience, but I don't have the responsibility of like housing it and footing the bill at home. So, because that would definitely impact all of this.
Yeah, I totally get it. I think I've done the same thing. I've worked in a zoo for 10 years and it was the same thing. I've worked with crocodile monitors. I've worked with everything from the large, 60-pound water monitors to everything. And I've only ever kept one monitor in my care, and it was a big black throat. And I
Nice.
kept it for about 10 years, and man, that thing was more work than just about any other animal.
Yeah,
So I
and it's
totally get
it's
it.
rewarding and satisfying, but then once you're over, once the animal passes on or whatever, people ask you, "You gonna
Yeah.
get another one?" You're like, "Nah,
Uh,
I'm good."
I'm good. Been there, done
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
All right, so let's go to that chondro. What's the story? Why only one? And where's that going? And what is
Uh,
it?
it's a male sarong that I got as an unsexed little yellow Neo from a friend who was selling it for a gentleman who produced a small clutch of just locality sarongs a few years ago. And at the time, my plan was to just play a little bit of contribution in the locality game. And so I was going to raise it up, find out what gender it is, and then, acquire a second one and, slowly but surely work on, producing some just true, pure locality chondros for the hobby. Um, so it's just on pause until I have more space and financial freedom to work on revisiting that project again. But I sometimes forget I have that snake. He's, right here, and he's just like the easiest, lowest maintenance snake ever.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah,
hear
it's
people
just
say that all the time. It's a really such an easy animal to care for, especially if you're not breeding them.
yeah. I know
It's
that anything gets complicated when you try and breed. You're really playing a lot of strings on their biological processes and putting through some acute stress at times and sometimes more. So keeping, obviously this room is all reptiles, so it's ambient, sort of builds off of all the insulation from all the PVC and the heating elements, and so it sort of has its natural ambient temperature. So that chondro lives just fully ambient and is fine in this room year round at ambient, and it gets a little bit of fluctuation in the winter, but otherwise. I'll temperature gun the enclosure at random times of the day, night, year, and it's always within these really good, like 70s parameters. It doesn't really fluctuate much. The animal's super hardy, eats every time, sheds perfectly every time, like no issue. But I'm sure whenever I commit to finally pulling the plug and getting the female and doing that, I bet you I'll encounter my fair share of challenges. They are an unforgiving species to breed for sure.
you have absolutely zero heat on him though. So your ambient is what, 77 to 79 or even lower?
Even higher right now in the
Okay.
summer. But yeah, in the winter it will get a little bit lower. I try not to let the ambient get lower than like for the room, like 68, 65 is pushing it. I can get it lower. But each year, each winter, I've gotten progressively lower and lower. And last season, I went a little too far, and I had animals get a little bit too cold, get RIs, and I had some
Yeah.
pass from just getting real too cold.
And
So
are you talking about all Morelias in that case?
yes, yeah,
Are you
yeah, just
doing are you doing any heat during the day though?
yep, yep, definitely.
Like okay, let me rephrase. Are you doing only heating up the room? Or are you doing like a hot spot to 82, 84, 86, 88, depending on the species?
They still had hotspot, but the ambient was much lower. I wasn't adding like an inkwell or Honeywell heater or anything like that into the room to add heat. So during the winter, I can, depending on how much I fiddle with the window and things like that, I can get this room down pretty cold, especially the caging on the floor. Can get into the low 60s if I really want it to. I do have diamonds in here and they don't care, but obviously my Papuans and some of the other stuff they don't really enjoy that cold. So what I've done in the past was when I I bred my Brettles pythons. I brought them to the warehouse that I worked at and just set them up in a tank in the back, so they would get into the 40s and 50s at night, but then they'd have a timer pop a light on during the day, so they were getting their 6 to 8 hours of bassing temps. And I think just because I pushed it a little bit harder this past season than years prior. Um, I think some of the animals, just the stress of breeding while that was going on, just in going deeper, colder than I had before, was a little too much for them.
Yeah, I feel like whenever you bring animals cold, it really brings out if any animal has anything going on, right?
Yep.
Anything at all. If it's and when it's in perfect health, even if it's got a little bit amounts of viruses or a little bit amounts of a bacteria, whatever it is that it's fighting, it can do
Yep.
fine because it's fighting it pretty well. But when you cool them down, and then all of a sudden their immune system slowly ramps down because the heat isn't as high up. If anything that's underlying in there, it comes out. So
Yeah.
that's when, like, I tend to have usually, I'd say one sick snake every single season. There's that one that you're like, oh shit, like it's I'd say it's almost a seasonal thing.
Yeah. There's always, like you said, there's always one that doesn't handle it as well as the rest. I did have quite a few bounce back, of course, but yeah, I did lose a few animals. But that's the price you pay when you're finally breeding and you're actually like putting them through the ringer. It's a lot of stress their bodies go through. So
Yeah, you lose one or two, and then you breed, 100. You pick your 10
right.
holdbacks, and somehow you still have too many at the end.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So I'm actually curious right now. So I have a very similar problem where I keep mainly Morelia, and I've always done the winter breeders, and
Mm,
I did inlands. Well, last year for the first time, and the inlands I bred them kind of like a winter breeder, but I brought them as low as I could, and I put them on the coldest on the bottom, directly on the floor. So, my whole room went down to maybe 64, 66, and they went down to low 60s, like probably hitting
nice.
60. And I think that's as low as I got them. And it worked.
Perfect.
I got inlands for the first time this year. Now I have diamonds. I can't go below 60. I can't. I tried everything. I cannot get my room below 60. So right now in your room, if you kept your diamonds in the same room, how would you do it? By knowing that you've got animals that can't go below, let's be honest, 65, right?
Yeah, yeah. So what I would do is I would honestly put them in an enclosure right next to the window that's going to get cold at night, or I would move them into my living room or somewhere that I know I can get
Okay.
cold because it doesn't have animals in it, and just put them in there overnight. I know Lucas has done that. Lucas Lee, he's over in
Yep.
Oakland, and he's had his animals successfully breed when he puts their bins out on the balcony, in his dining room balcony or wherever, where it gets really cold, and then brings them back in during the day, and just did that. And it allowed them to get cold as needed, but then still warm back up during the day. So
Yeah. I
I
think
think,
the issue is I have no time to put an animal in a bin
mm,
every morning and bring him back in
yes,
his cage every day. So I'm
yeah,
trying
it
to
is
figure out a
a
solution that does not include that. And my second issue is I don't have a wife that's into animals like you. I am restrained to this room. Nothing is allowed out of my room. So
yeah.
so I'm just curious, if you had to do it in the same room, you would do it with a window. I have no window here, but I do have access to the outside if I plumbed like I could probably get a that this is my current plan is to get a 6 inch
Hmm.
like air duct bringing
Hmm.
cold air,
Hmm.
and you can literally buy little fans that fit in those to
Yep.
push cold air directly into the
Yep.
specific cages I wanted to do. So
Yeah.
that's
Even
kind
if
of
you
my
threw them
idea.
into, yeah, even if you threw them into one singular cage over the winter, had a ducting with a fan, and just pulled all that cold air in every night, and just put
Yeah.
them in that every night, and then just have the fan on a timer, so at night it comes on, and then during the day you have a little heat lamp, because they'll be fine over the winter together. They'll just hang out, and then they'll breed once spring comes around.
I was thinking of putting a probe in the cage that's cooled off, but that turns on the fan when it gets too hot. You know what I mean?
Perfect.
So
I
if
think
it
that's a
gets too
great
hot,
idea.
it turns the fan, pushes more cold air, and as soon as it reaches that cold temperature, it stops or something like that.
I think
But
that's a great idea.
Anyway, just a thought because you were talking about, and you seem to have the similar problem, but you've got a much easier solution. You got
Well,
a wife that lets you put animals anywhere.
I will say that my mentor and good friend Todd Dyer, when he was producing diamonds for Psychotic Exotics, he had a warehouse situation. So one whole building can't really, get that whole thing cold without affecting the other animals. So he had the diamonds in enclosures right by the roll-up door, and he cut vents in the sides of the PVC cages and did exactly that, ducting and fans to pull that cold air into those enclosures, and then just basking lamps that would go on during the day. And he was successful plenty of times.
Oh, that's interesting. So the idea does work.
Yes,
All right,
yeah, it does work.
very nice. So
Yeah,
all right, let's shift to those pop wins. So
yeah,
you got 2.2. Um, Tell me, like you've had him for a while now.
yep.
I don't think you've successfully bred him. Am I right or am I
Nope,
wrong? Nope.
you are
Okay,
correct.
so
You're
what are
correct.
you doing, and how are you getting there? What are you doing differently? How are you going to get there?
Well, so far, I've really put 2 good seasons of real trying in, and last year was like really informational and eye-opening for me, and I do have some thoughts. So, I have a pair of 2017 animals that were produced by Kevin Wilminski up in Rhode Island. So they are U.S. captive born and bred animals. And then I have a long-term captive female that's 13, 14 feet long, and then I got an imported baby from Dan Maleri January 2020, right before COVID hit. So he's about 5.5, 6 years old now, and he's pushing 8 or 9 feet. But uh, I know that Ryan and other breeders have had success with multiple males going over females, and I don't know if just some sort of hormonal increase from multiple males around really stimulates that extra oomph that the male needs to get the job done, or if there's something we just don't understand. But um, the nice thing about these snakes is they palpate really easily. So I was able to get my females to cycle and get follicles in them. And last season, what happened was I actually had a heating element in each of my enclosures fail for about a week or so. And so the females got really cold. And then I was breeding again, and both of them blew up, went off food, and were locking. And then I guess one of them, went a little bit longer and was kind of stringing me along. The other girl went right back on food. So they're really difficult to interpret. With my bigger long-term captive female, I don't think I was feeding her enough last season to really convince her biologically, like, boom, not only were you getting slammed with food, but there's a ton of it. I was feeding her frequently, but it was like, 2x, 2 or 3x rats, every week, which is like a tic tac for her. Now she eats, 2 pound piglets, and it's like it barely is noticeable. But I think I think they need a massive intake of food. I've been talking a lot with Ryan Young, and I know he sort of with his Papuan species of snakes, he likes to cycle them with food cycling and do less in the winter, more in the summer. Or no, other way around, less in the summer, more in the winter. Um, and so last season, what I was doing was I was pulling my male out, the captive born and bred male, and putting him with the females, engaging their responses on the initial sort of like acknowledgement of a male there. Um, they are actually quite cordial. I think if you try and pair them outside of season, that's when you have issues, or if maybe they're mixed sex, you might have because they've been known to cannibalize each other, females eating males. But I was comfortable, leaving my male in with them for days at a time because they would show me in the first few minutes if the female was anywhere in her cycling system that she was at least okay with him being there. If she wasn't okay with him being there, she would buck him like a retic, run away, even as much as like head bluff him, and he would. If he wasn't welcome, he would show it too. His behavior would be very terrified, and he would just be like, "Nope, not going near her." But otherwise, they were quite receptive, and that was usually around Uh, so I got some interest in like January, but then I sort of backed off and kept feeding. And because they were still eating very heavily. I wasn't pairing as much, and so then I started pairing back again in April. And so April was when I was actually getting a lot of locks, March and April, and females going off food. So, the only thing I can think of was that maybe I could have kept putting the male in with the one female that was showing me the most signs, because at a certain point I was able to palpate her and I counted a dozen really big like follicles, like golf ball size follicles in a row, like boom, 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 nice linear. And I would put the male in, they would lock, spend a few days together, and then I'd separate them, feed, rinse and repeat. And then she stopped being interested in food. They would still breed. And then one day I would put him in and she wasn't interested. He was, in an hour later, he was sleeping on the other side of the enclosure. They were just acting very uninterested. I separated them, tried again a week later, same sort of thing. I was like, okay, they're done. And nothing came of it. So, they are as difficult as they have alluded other people to. I don't know. Some people they keep them in a nice, really consistent 85 degrees or so, and food cycle them and just let them breed when they breed. Um, and some of us, get real close and nothing comes of it. So
So if I'm
I don't know.
right, they're more of an equatorial species, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you
Definitely.
so you can try to play a bit with temperatures, but realistically, I don't think it has a huge impact. So my
Right.
guess is, so you're more talking about trying to do it more like I've heard a lot of people talk about Timors, about
Mm,
how they need to be fed like a crazy large amount to get them to go. Is that
yeah.
kind of what you're thinking? Is that the
Yes.
theory you're
That's
okay?
what I'm gonna really, that's the variable I'm gonna tackle much more aggressively this year. So last year, I didn't have piglets on hand from Jeff Kelly of El Segundo Pythons. He sells, humanely cleaned and stillborn pigs of various sizes,
Yep.
frozen and shipped wherever, and they're fantastic. And these Apadora love them. And but last year, before I had that, I had really large rats and some big old chickens, and I was just feeding them like as much as they would eat, like two, three in a sitting, once a week, give them a chance to gorge, and just really slamming them. And I did get to a point where they stopped. They were just like, okay, we're done. And so I was encouraged to see that, but I still don't think, especially the bigger girl, the long-term captive girl, I still don't think I was able to trigger her biologically to be like, okay, we've got enough, food on hand. Let's go. Like she had enough to exist and be healthy, but it's a big animal. It takes a lot to really get her fat. So
Yeah, I feel like we're so conditioned lately to in the past, let's say 10 years, to like keep your snakes slim, stop overfeeding your snakes fat, blah blah blah. That we're a lot of people are very, especially breeders, are very careful with not overfeeding their snakes, and some of them are a little bit different than that. So, just by curiosity, have you tried putting the two males in at the same time with the female? And is their male battling at all, or none at all?
I haven't tried that yet, but this year I'm gonna be more comfortable using my second male because he's finally of size where he's comparable with the other male, and I don't think he's quite so snack sized for at least my captive born and bred female. He's smashing down, massive meals, so he's growing. But I do want to try him and see, do I observe combat, and then if I pull him and then put them both with females, what happens with that? If there's any sort of like mate preference, like selection, like if this female really likes that male but doesn't like him, it'll be hard to evaluate. That's the challenge, like what is their behavior actually saying?
I feel like there's so much you can do, right? You could put the two males in with female A. You leave them in
Mhm.
for a bit. Either they deal with each other and you see what happens, or they battle it out. If they battle it out, then you separate and you put the other one with the other female right after, right? And you see it,
Exactly.
and then after that, you can put the two males in with female B and see what happens, right? I feel like there's so many different avenues to try it. And
Yeah.
as long as no one gets eaten, I can see it happening. And then my next one would be, well, if you have a big enough of a cage, I'd even be willing to say put all four together. I don't know. That's another thing to,
Yeah.
if you had a big enough of a cage, because I and I know they're not carpets, right? But I've put four snakes together and it works. Like the
Yeah,
male will pick
yeah.
the female that's ready and keep going. So I don't know. It's one of those things where I wonder if you could somehow keep all four together, and the males didn't battle. If they battle, obviously that doesn't work. Um,
I would think you could probably pull it off with enough enclosure space because my biggest concern would be the females being territorial about their basking spots and being like, okay, when I want the heat, I want to be able to go to the heat and not have to compete for it. And then when they want to have their spots to cool off, I think they're probably a little more, comfortable with, potentially encountering another individual because like I said, like everybody that works with them and tries to breed them, they don't like leaving them alone. I've left mine together for a week at a time, and they just breed and breed and breed. And then, obviously nothing came of it, but they were cordial. They were very friendly. They weren't aggressive towards one another. Like I'd lift up hides and they'd be snoozing together, tied up every single day. So,
that one time you had, I think it was the male. I'm not sure that just destroyed that other pup. Was that a feeding response or was that breeding related?
I did have a female grab a male one morning, and I think I was pairing too early, and I caught it like right as the lights flipped on. He must have been cruising by and like she saw movement and just went bam and just grabbed the first thing. And
So
I
you
was
think it
able
was
to get
feeding
them off.
response?
I think that was fully feeding
Yeah.
response, and I had misinterpreted their earlier cordial behavior as being okay with one another. I think I just didn't watch long enough to see any behavior that the female was, not down with it. But yeah, it ended up being okay. And then I talked with Ryan some more, and he was like, well, if they're still interested in feeding, they're probably not quite cycling yet, so maybe you're early. And I was like, fair enough. And after seeing how um, when I was very heavily feeding them leading up to April and how vigorous they ate and then all of a sudden stopped and then how much breeding activity I got afterwards, I do believe he was pretty spot on with that assessment with where I was at given that mistake. So,
So in the states, obviously you bring up Brian Young, right? Is he one of the only person that's bred pup, or is there a couple of other people? Do you know?
um,
I'm just curious. So offhand, for Canada, there's only one that I know of that's bred him, and it's Cody Joe, and I think he's bred him like twice in the past 2 or 3 years. He's had been having
yeah,
amazing success.
Cody got two clutches this year and one full clutch last year. Um, but he's up in Canada. I know Kevin Welninski in Rhode Island got a clutch in 2017, and then the same pair produced for him in 2021. But I don't think he's had another repeat since. Um, I did see one
So,
other individual in an Apadora group, I believe, posted he had a clutch this year too.
so
So
like, there's 3 or 4 people in the states basically that's bred him. Is that what I'm getting
I
at?
I
A
feel like
couple,
that's probably a safe
handful.
number. Yeah, yeah. I know there's been intermittent success in zoos, especially over in Europe, and folks that you talk to Ryan and he'll tell you that there've been people who've bred them and the Barkers have bred them and you know, but yeah, it's not a species that is consistently bred at all.
Hmm. I think we're gonna have to bring on Cody Joe because I think I kind of want to hear that story how he's doing it because he's having good success with them. Have you talked to him about it at all? Is that one
A
of the
little
person
bit
you've
in
reached out to?
com I've talked to him in like comments here and there and
Yeah.
congratulated him, and then I've watched his videos and content that he's put out there on them, and sort of like lent a keen ear to his process. And he does 8 foot cages, and he'll introduce the male in with the female. He's got nice big nest boxes in there, and if I'm not mistaken, he keeps it 85 pretty much year round and then just allows some fluctuation in the room to dictate whatever seasonal availability they get. And I know he's got other snakes in that room because if I'm not mistaken, that was like the back of a shop that he's running.
Yeah, it's
Um,
something like that. He's got the front is a pet shop, and the back is, and then the basement is
yeah.
other animals. Yeah, he's got a lot.
Yeah, and so I think. I think he does a great job with paying attention to his animals, and he's really tuned into his snakes when he talks about them. He has a very clear understanding of like what he's interpreting of his female's behavior and kind of watching them, and he breeds a lot of other species, so he's got the gift, and he has a very good attention to detail, and he's really tuned into his animals. And I also wouldn't be surprised if there's some value to consistency too. I don't know how long he's been in that shop and how long those animals have been in that same space, but you know I think
I
there's
don't
something to be said about not moving an animal around every couple years,
I
like to
don't
new
know how
owners or
long it's
something.
been. I think it's less than 5 years because I've heard a story about how he got kicked out and stuff like that. I don't think it's been that many years, but I get what you mean,
Okay.
right? To
Yeah,
me, I feel like every animal that you've had for 5 years and raised from a baby are the easiest to breed, right? They've
totally.
been used to it forever, so it's
Yeah, they come up in your system of care,
yeah.
and they know all the stimuli that they're going to experience from day one, pretty much.
Well, I hope you eventually breed them because I think they're an amazing species. A species I'll never keep because I can't keep anything over 2 meters or what is that, 7.5 feet for you Americans. So that's my bylaw. So can't keep anything that big, but I think they're amazing. I
They're
love to see them.
they're something special, man. They're
So
really unique. They're incredibly strong. Getting my female out of her cork, like she lives in this like cork round. That's like her favorite spot. When she's in there, it is a wrestling match to get her out because she's just like, no, I don't want to. And I usually end up breaking a huge sweat just trying to get her out to like just take her out and check on her. There's so much snake and she's so strong.
would you compare them to scrubs, like a nice big scrub?
I bet you like a really massive king horneye, like the really big Aussie ones, are probably close to this, but I've I've held 8, 9, 10 foot scrubs. Brandon Wheeler's Barneck, one of his females, Gypsy, and like, yeah, they're strong, but it's like a leaner, like it's just there's less mass to it. So yes, they can have a great grip on you, but it doesn't hurt. These animals, if they squeeze hard enough, it hurts. Like if they get a weird hold on your fingers and your hand, and you're not lined up right, and you just let them go, they will hurt you. Yeah, without really trying. They are insanely strong.
Yeah, totally right. Very cool. All right, let's jump into the fun stuff. So carpet pythons, you've got a good amount,
Yeah,
right?
man.
Let's.
Yeah.
Do you have them all? Do you have inland Bradleys? Let's go Darwin coastals, jungles. What am I missing
Yeah.
there? Papuans. Did I
D
miss any?
diamonds.
Did I say diamonds? Yeah, you definitely don't have gammon Flanders.
No.
No, not yet.
No.
I know a few Americans have them, even though they won't say it.
Yep.
Um,
Those are
Southwestern,
on my
nobody
list.
does. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen them. I mean, again, I know of one or two Americans that have them, and UK Python have them. I just don't want to pay the price
Right.
for them.
Yeah, the price
So,
is always the big hurdle. They can get here, but yeah, it's a sticker price right there.
okay, so let's start with the most common ones, the one that everybody loves, jungles. What lines
Yeah.
do you have?
Oh, a combination of a lot of stuff. I've got stuff from Ed Lilly that has like Vandeventer and Ivory stuff. That I've got stuff from Psychotic Exotics that includes animals from way back in like the early 90s. I've got stuff from there's some cover girl representation in some of my zebras. Um, I have some MIA line stuff that came in to the country a few years ago during COVID.
That's cool.
Uh, what else? I've been making my own striped line stuff with a combination of a lot of different lines that has some like CBR and hair and Lazic and stuff in the back, and then that Ivory Van Deventer stuff produced a lot of stripe stuff that I started a lot of the founding stuff with.
That's so really important when you get a nice clean stripe. Are you going to try to confuse everybody and mix the word tiger in there?
Nah, I went back and forth with that, and for a while I was like, you can't do that." But then I was like, well, but it's accepted in like the Tiger Darwins and the Tiger
Yeah,
IJ line and all these other things. I'm like,
it
well,
shouldn't be, but yeah.
it shouldn't be, but it is, and it's just if that's the way it is, then like, does that mean I can go and do that? And I was like, no, I don't think I'm gonna do that. At one point, I was convinced I was gonna do that, and I was like, why can't I? But now I'm like, I don't even wanna, I don't even want to play in that dirty pool. I'd rather just give it my own name.
I feel like you can. The problem is that whenever I feel like somebody calls a tiger, like if I have a tri stripe or a nicely striped coastal that's not a Balin line tiger, right?
Hmm.
And I call it a
Hmm.
tiger, to me, it just, if I say it's a tiger, then it means it comes from a Bila, like a Balin lineage, right? And then it
Yeah,
just mixes everybody up. Like,
yeah,
it's so frustrating. And when the Darwin came out, I'll be honest, I was a little surprised that Nick called his Darwin's tigers, because I was
yeah.
like, man, that just. And I get it; it sells better with the word tiger because everybody loves it. But god damn it, it mixes shit up. And
It
now
does.
it's in IJs, and IJs. I mean, like, I find like most of the IJs, even the wild caught ones, come in striped. Right? It's one of the
Oh yeah,
species that is insanely inherently striped. There's a lot
oh
of
yeah,
really nicely banded ones, but getting a striped papuan is extremely easy. They're about as common as can be. Right?
yeah.
Jungles, not so much. Jungles, the
No,
striping is tough to get there. It's definitely a tough
yeah.
one.
Every once in a while,
So
I see people produce clutches of jungles, and there's like a couple random stripes in there. But yeah, it's not as prevalent. I've got some wild caught pop ones that it seems like they're almost perfectly striped. Just you just stretch them out and look. You're like, oh wow, look at that. It all
I feel
connects.
like almost all of mine are perfectly striped. Well, the ones that are not uh, granite.
Yeah,
Everything else, I
yeah.
think it's pretty much striped. But I'm slowly dwindling down my Papuan carpets purely because I've been working the marble, the granite. Um, she's granite exanthic, and I'm at the
Hmm.
point now that I have a 1.2 granite exanthic
Nice.
representation. So all the other ones that took me forever to get there, my females are now, they're what, 2023, so they're getting up there, and my male's only 1 year old. But you know what I mean, like it's at some point
Yeah,
all the possible hets and all the
they gotta
granite
go.
het exanthic, and eventually I'm like, I you don't really need them
Yeah,
when you can produce directly to direct. So
right.
so
Yeah.
back to your jungles. I noticed you got something that's pretty cool that I've been breeding for a little while now. You've got ocelots, right, that appeared in yours.
Yeah, yeah.
So why don't you talk to me about
Unexpected.
where those came from, and what is an ocelot to you? Because it's kind of like a gene in itself that I feel is different than what appears to be the ocelot in the coastals. But I'm curious to see your take on it.
Yeah, personally need to see more of the coastal ocelot stuff to get more of a comprehensive understanding on that. That being said, to me, an ocelot, um, much like how Papuans can really easily stripe, I think there are some jungles that can easily throw sort of like rosettes or circles on there, but it's not always consistent. And so like you'll see snakes with like one or two on there, but when you see them where it's like the pattern really wants to put dots or circles or bullseyes or something where it's like either a negative space or highlighted in a circle, um, there seems to be a bit of a propensity for it to pop out. And so when I was first learning about the ocelot stuff, of course I learned of um, scattershot exotics and my curtains ocelot projects, and then didn't quite understand it personally because I didn't like ask him to flesh it out. I was just like, I'm just gonna read a few things and like, lurk a little bit. But to me it seems like it's like a polygenic sort of trait, and if you capture it, like if you have an animal that has those traits, you can select for it and breed it like a very true driven morph, just like the Balin Tiger line, where it is a morph, but it's a line. But I think there's a couple of lines of ocelots, or they've popped out in several people's collections, sort of uniquely of one another. So I was actually going more for stripes, and I produced some striped jungles in 2019 that I kept a trio of and raised up, and they have nice dorsal stripe, but the flank markings are these nice sort of like circles, or they almost look like spades, like playing card spades. But I never really like looked at those as a potential ocelot or anything, and didn't even think about that until the two clutches that I produced last year hatched, and there was a lot of stripes in there, but there was a lot of animals with just very clear ocelots down the side, just highly defined circles going way up and down. And and when I collectively stood back and looked at the two clutches, I realized there was sort of a standard expression in variation that, in my opinion, lined up with polygenic. You have like a few really high expression animals, a few really low expression animals, and then a lot of animals that are sort of like in the mid range of expressing that ocelot stuff. Um, so to me, what I think I have popping up, which I'll do some test breeding over the years to see, where it goes. What I think is an ocelot line, but I do think it is a polygenic sort of trait.
Are you
Yeah.
breeding only your ocelots in normal jungles, or have you put ocelot in zebra yet?
I haven't put it, I've only bred them back to one another yet. My plan is to, yes, put it into zebra. And I also have a zebra that I hatched out this year. Actually, a couple of zebras that I hatched out this year from my female super zebra that have what appear to be ocelot markers as well. So I might see if those down the line react with some of these animals too. So there's a couple different directions I'm going to take it. I'm going to breed them back to the adults, see what happens. Breed them to unrelated jungles, see what happens. Breed them to siblings, see what happens, and then see what happens with those newer zebras that just came out, and just keep going, see where we
So
go.
I'll give you a bit of my insight because I've been breeding them now for, geez, I think I'm on generation 4.
Nice.
So I ended up getting some ocelots that popped out, but mine popped out in, I never noticed it in the normals. Okay,
Okay.
just because, like you're saying, it's just you would get spots, and you're just like spots, right? And most of the time, you would get ocelots. You tend to have a lot more striping in the animals because the
Mm-hmm.
ocelot would detach the pattern off, and the
Mm-hmm.
dorsal stripe would automatically form. But I never
Mm-hmm.
really did anything out of it. Anyway, but then, and I would always tend to keep more the zebras and the zebras that had the ocelot markings because they were really cool, and I ended up getting rid of all the normals because I'm like, I can still produce normals with the zebras. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I've done a lot of test breedings. I think I'm at about 12 test breedings, if not even no. Well, just this year we have 7. We bred 7 jungles, me and my buddy Chandalance, and so we've been
Nice.
doing a lot of them. But so first off, if you breed a zebra that is ocelot to a completely unrelated line. So, and I've done this test breeding to, like, the one line that popped out all the ocelot, I bred it to a German line, which were two
Mm-hmm.
completely, and I've never had any ocelots pop out of a German line. I get every single phenotype available. I get the normal type, I get the ocelot, I get the zebra, I get the zebra ocelot.
Mm-hmm.
And so you get all 4. If you breed a zebra ocelot to a zebra ocelot, I get a super zebra that has, well, just patternless, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then I get only zebra ocelots. I do not get any zebras, 0. And
Interesting.
I've done that pairing over 4 times now. Zebra
Hmm.
ocelot to zebra ocelot only produces zebra ocelots. You will not get any zebras, and you don't get any normals. 0 normals. Every single baby will have ocelot influence in it. So
Hmm.
could that be polygenic? Maybe, but I feel like if it was polygenic, you would still get the random one that doesn't look at all ocelot,
Sure.
and some that would be crazy ocelot, right? So, but
Sure.
I've never ever produced a normal or a zebra from a zebra ocelot to zebra ocelot ever, and
Interesting.
I've done many pairings. So
So that would correct me if I'm wrong. Does that align more with it being a dominant trait?
So I want to say incomplete dominant, but the problem with incomplete dominant doesn't need to be a super form, which I don't know what the super form is. There does not appear to be one,
Yeah, unless like
unless the super form is like I don't know,
just like the really fully super ocelotted and
yeah,
like the hets are like a low expression.
it could be. In that case, it could be, but I've gotten like
Huh.
the perfect odds that show that, and every single
Yeah.
time, and I've done the pairing back to the German twice now, and
Hmm.
identical thing. Every time I breed it out, I get the
Interesting.
perfect half is normal, half is ocelot, half is zebra, half is zebra ocelot.
Interesting.
So again, but this is from the line that I have.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, so, and our lines in Canada are slightly different than yours, so
Sure,
it's
sure.
hard to say. So
Yeah,
mine is
so
from the. Sorry, go ahead.
Ocelot's it's a really good example of like how a certain look can show up in a lot of different lines, I think. That's always been my confusion in processing it mentally is like, but it seems to pop up in a lot of places. So is it, I just like couldn't comprehend, is it something that just is abundantly successful as a phenotype and we're seeing multiple lines of it pop up? Or are we just interpreting it differently and maybe there's like one or two and we're just like misreading it? Or I don't know. It's now you got me really curious now. Um,
But like, look at it this way:
hmm,
if you had a perfect tiger, a perfectly striped animal, and you bred him to another perfectly striped animal, would
yeah.
100% of the clutch be perfectly striped?
N-
The answer is
no,
no, right?
no.
So, and
Yeah,
that's
you would have
polygenic.
some
So,
variation. Yeah.
and we're easily just this year we had 7 clutches, and many of them were. I've had 2 clutches that were ocelot zebra to ocelot zebra,
Hmm.
and I didn't produce a normal, and I did not produce a zebra. Everything was zebra
Interesting.
ocelot or ocelot out of those 2 clutches, and we're talking about 40 eggs,
I
give or
will
take.
say that nothing that has come from the parents that produced what I'm calling as my posselots, like possible
Yeah,
ocelots.
ocelots. I like it.
Posselots, yeah. I'm just leaving room for my own human error in there, you know. But I wouldn't say I got a single normal baby out of any of them. Like not a normal by phenotype at all. Like every single jungle that came out of those had something that I was like, this is very, very distinct to this pairing. Like what I'm calling the lower expression animals, like I sold a couple of them and they literally instead of ocelots on the side, they have like bow ties where it's like the sides still want to do something different and it is still very coding wise detached from the coding of the pattern formation on the dorsal. Like when these snakes are in the embryo, the way the DNA codes for pattern, the dorsal patterning is one coding section, the flank patterning is one coding section, and the belly pattern is one coding section. And obviously in certain morphs they behave in tandem with one another, but I think what we're seeing is very distinct, like this ocelot focuses so much on, like you said earlier, on the side markings that what's left on the dorsal, it naturally forms a stripe. Um, but yeah, when I'm looking at these ones that don't have crazy amounts of circles on the side, they still don't look normal. They have like zigzag dorsal that doesn't want to touch the sides, and then the sides don't look normal either. So
Yeah.
yeah,
See, I have
time
two
will
tests.
tell.
I have 2 test pairing that's left for me to do. Is I have an adult
Okay.
pair now of super zebras,
Okay.
and
That came from that.
the super zebras came from 2 ocelot zebras for
Nice.
a pairing of ocelots. So now they're both 3 years old and both like 5+ feet. So they're both ready. So
Beautiful.
I have to figure out what test pairing I'm going to do. I'm debating on whether to do like a super zebra to a. Again, those ones have no German line. I was thinking maybe I'm going to do the male to German line that is completely unrelated. And I
And
bet
then
you
one
again,
to a zebra.
and I bet you I'm going to get half zebra and half ocelot zebra
Yeah.
because that's what I should get. And finally, we raised up ocelots, just plain ocelots, but purely because I never held them back. I always sold them off, and at the start, I sold every single ocelot as normals. I just assumed they
Interesting.
were normal with aberrant
Sure.
patterns.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
and anyway, it's been
That's
one
really
of my
interesting.
projects that's been fun. Honestly, it's probably the project that pays for every single new snake in this room. Like every time I
Oh,
want
that's
something
good to
new,
know.
the jungles, they've always been paying for everything. Honestly, it's the one
Yeah,
project that pays for everything. They're the
they sell
easiest ones to sell.
themselves.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they're very pretty. Very
I think
pretty
I
snakes.
produce 45 or give or take jungles, and I have four left for sale. So yeah, they sell very well.
Awesome.
It's
That's
the best one.
fantastic.
All right, so moving on from jungles, let's see. So, what do you have most of in your collection that is not jungles, Morelia wise? What's
Poplar
your
carpets for sure.
Popwins?
Yeah,
Okay,
definitely.
so what's your collection? 20 Popwins, more or less.
No, probably more like 50.
Oh,
Um,
damn.
yeah, I'm
Okay, is that a lot
I'm
of your holdbacks?
it's half holdbacks, half animals that I got from other people that I've been raising up and breeding.
Okay, so what's your goal
I
there? Where are you trying to go? Are you trying to go with certain colors? Are you trying to breed out? What are you trying to breed to?
so I have a few goals within the Popwin stuff. I want to keep the Boa Cabana animals alive that Jen and Scott Holland imported in the early 90s, and they've kept their line pure and done a lot of selective breeding. So I have a trio of those animals, but I also would like to introduce those into some striped stuff that I've produced because those animals make some beautiful creamy striped stuff that's just fantastic. And like jungles sell really well, pop wins for me sell really well. If I'm making really nice colored animals, people just really like them. I have some stuff that goes very, very dark. So I have some animals that come from Emily Stoddard, although she got married, so her last name is now Emily Dubois, I believe. I'm behind the time. She got married a few years ago. Anyway, she made some really beautiful dark popwin carpets that I got a while back from her that have since been breeding like crazy for me and throw a lot of really nice dark animals, but there's still some that come through with some odd fire orange in there that is really unique. So I've held a lot back from that. I think I've held there's a pair from the first time, two pairs from the second time I bred them, and I'm gonna keep probably another pair from them this year. Um, I've got a couple different breedings for stripes, a couple different breedings for dark stuff. And within the dark stuff, there's two different looks that I really like. There's the stuff that's just like heavy black as possible. Like the females during the winter, their pattern even gets dark and little to no flaming on the side. But then there's some that do like this black and smoky, like lavender gray, and when they fire up, they almost look purpley silver at times. So there's a couple different looks that I've been kind of playing with and keeping back in that. And then this year, I was finally able to get two clutches from my own line that I'm starting to work on for high color, and that started with imports from Dan Maleri about 10 years ago, produced the first generation from those, kept a trio, and then the nicest uh, colored male ended up staying really red even after his neonatal stage. And so I named him Redman. And he's been a fantastic breeder for me, and everything he touched turns to gold. And so I've kept a lot of animals from him. I'm looking at one, two, three, four of his holdbacks right there, five of his holdbacks, and then I've got all the clutches from this year, and I'm gonna keep everything that he produced this year, with the exception of like two snakes that I'm gonna let my patrons have access to, and then the rest I'm just gonna like just force myself to not sell because they are so good. They are so red, man. I mean, they're way, way better than I could have imagined. And normally, you get red neonates. They have their first shed. They're going to retain some of that red. They go into their second shed, come out with a lot of black, and then the red is more of like orange and flames, and you start seeing how they're going to adjust. These things are still just tomato red all up the sides, like really creamy, really, really, really good potential in there. And so just to make sure that I make the right choice and don't, let something go that is a late bloomer, I'm going to keep everything from this clutch for at least a year. I've marked my 2.3 that are just never going to leave, just period. But then the rest, I like every time I check on that, I'm like, oh, what are you? I don't have you marked as a holdback. Yeah, I'm just not even going to put them on the website. Um, that's my favorite stuff right now, man. That stuff like makes the hair on my arms stand up, gets me excited. Like I'm like giddy for every shed from every single animal in that clutch. And they're big, they're robust, they eat right away, and they're the best, man. I just love them. They're, I can't say enough good things about them.
So, just so I understand a bit the market. So, first of all, I'll say the market in Canada sucks. Completely sucks for
Oh
papas.
no.
So, the only ones I can move the granite and the xanthics, no problem. A
Okay.
normal, I have a hard time selling for about $100, and $100 Canadian is maybe $65 American, just to give you an
Oh,
idea.
brother,
And a pure,
brother.
they don't move. They're horrible for that, and they're one of my favorites. But the problem is, I never do more than one clutch, or I'll make
Uh-huh.
sure that there's mainly xanthics or granites in there, because
Sure.
if not, I can't move them. So, and it's been really frustrating. It's one of those animals that I don't know why there's just no market here for them. So, how much do they go for the states? Because I often see you guys like, fuck, man, you're posting like $400 or $500 for cheese, like, and that's American. Like, that's a
Yeah.
lot of money for just a wild-caught snake you can import for $125. Anyway, that's
Yeah.
that's the price
So
list here. So
yeah, it's interesting because I would say 10 years ago it was exactly the same. It was like pulling teeth to sell them for $200, you know. It was like people didn't know what they were, and if they did, they're just like, that's the brown carpet python that nobody wants.
so we're 10 years
Um,
behind, basically.
Potentially, or maybe it's just, maybe it's not even like a linear thing like that. Maybe you just need that species champion up there to really sing their good graces and just show some really wonderful examples because a lot of the hobby is shifting towards what is reasonable in terms of cost and size. And, Popwins, you can keep them pretty small. And I don't mean by like, oh, you put them in a box and they never grow sort of thing. I mean, you still feed them appropriately, but like, you don't have to push a carpet python. You don't have to feed these things crazy. But even still, you feed them really regularly, they don't get huge. My biggest Popwin carpet is maybe 6 feet, like
Yeah,
maybe. In
I
my
had a
males, I could hold in my hands like this, adult breeders like this.
yeah.
So,
My males are tiny. They're and I as soon as they breed once and they're a proven breeder, like, your life sucks because you're getting just like
yeah,
a
yeah,
tiny rat from now on once a month. You don't need to get any bigger. You've done the job. But I
yep,
had one
exactly.
female that I think she was 4 feet and maybe like like this big
Yeah,
around barely, and she would have clutches of 5 eggs. Which she was a tiny female, and she was like 5 or 6 years old. Every second year, she'd have 5 eggs, and she was
yeah,
tiny. But I was like, it's perfect. Tiny little clutch, some different
yeah,
variety, and yeah, but they are really small. You can almost like, I kind of feel bad, but a lot of them, like, you have a 4x2, you can almost cut it in half and just put your males in those little ones because they're so small, right? 3.5 feet.
absolutely,
They
absolutely.
they are good for
I
that. So you can fit a lot
Yeah,
more than a big coastal.
yeah. So there's some advantages that I think people have been sleeping on in size in that regard, but I will say there is some quality variation in there, and there are some pop ones that like when you look at them, they're not necessarily attractive per se. Like I can still look at them and see a subtle beauty in something that's just brown and black, and maybe doesn't have those really nice crisp buckskin
Yeah.
bands and nice yellows on the labials and the high contrast. But what's interesting is these animals change a lot. Day and night, winter to summer. Once you breed an animal, especially a female, they go really dark, and sometimes the color they come out of their breeding season with is different. And I don't know, man. I think there's just so much untapped potential in them. When I was first getting into them, imports were costing me $100. Now an import costs me $375, $400 if I want like a good
Ouch.
a really nice one, you know. And granted, I'm not importer shopping. I'm not going to like what the lowest importer is because I do see some importers that still bring them in and will sell them for like 250. But I've seen some of those, and I saw one recently that came in from an importer, and I don't believe it was even imported. I think it was somebody's hybrid byproduct because it looks like a Brettle Coastal cross, and they're selling it for like 200 bucks. And I was like, dude, there's no way. Like there's no shot. And I know who the importer is, and I've, at my previous job, my shop, we bought a lot of animals from them, and I do know for a fact that not all of their stock is wild caught. They do get a lot of captive born and bred stuff from a network of breeders in their area. So the likelihood of a tub getting swapped, a label getting not transferred or something like that, and all of a sudden this clutch of whatever Brettle Coastal Cross is, one animal gets mixed up and then it ends up on the list like that. I'm not saying that that's what happened, but for me, I know who I buy my imports through, and I happily pay his price. Because like,
Oh, I
Dan
get it.
Maliri, yeah, he's the best. He sets the bar, and he's been really good to me over the years. I, was fortunate enough to live in Santa Barbara and be able to vend a lot of the shows near him, or actually even vend with him, and help him out. And his wife Apple, she's wonderful. And so, to me, it's also, a way to support somebody who, I think is a great representative of the hobby. And it's like voting with my dollar. So like I could go to insert importer X here, but like I don't know, man. I'd rather have the peace of mind knowing that this thing is exactly as is described.
Yeah, I totally hear you. And the importer thing, like I've actually, no, actually, still I'm at that point. I have never owned an import ever.
Oh, really?
Everything's always been captive bred until, well, and I can't even say I own it. I have bought a pair of imported scrubs, but I
Nice.
can't keep them. They're too big.
Mm,
So because they're not legal here, so they're at my buddy's place. So technically, I own them, but I don't take care of them. So to me, that doesn't really count, right?
sure.
But I'm still in the process of trying to get freaking GTPs and doing pure GTPs and coming in as import. And all I'm gonna say is that holy crap, man, dealing with importers is not fun. It has been
No.
hell, and nothing has been working well. And I've had to go over the importer to the middleman, all the way to the Indonesian importer, and I've gotten all the contacts, and
Oh man.
I've never been lied to more in my life, and
Yep.
it's been fun. Let's just put it this way. And the
Yeah.
animals should have been here 8 months ago, and I am still waiting. That's all I'm gonna
Oh
say.
boy.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh man. That's a
it's
that's
been
a
fun.
that's a cutthroat business.
It's been rough. But so going back to the pup ones, so I hear you talking about all the colors. You know what? I haven't even noticed that I do this, but the colors I've always been breeding for with mine is not the reds or anything like that. I've always been breeding for the white, like the white pale sides with the purple, and
Yeah.
almost a hypo looking. Does that make sense? Like I don't know how else to describe them. Like
Yeah.
ridiculously pale sides that it almost looks white. Almost all of mine
Oh,
have that, and that's always the ones that I've held back. And
I love that.
I've got a lot of them that are all representation of that. And I find that whenever you got that, and then you put it into the granite's even looked sharper. And
Nice.
that's the colors I've always gone for. I don't know why. It's just always been the one. Like to me, that's the prettiest color is that purplish white in them. So
Yeah.
just
Yeah,
that's
I couldn't agree. Those ones stop me in my tracks. Like I've got some animals that will fire up like that, and if I catch them at like 7 in the morning or late in the evening, I just happen to check on them, and sometimes they're just sleeping, but they literally look like the moon has been like illuminated through their scales, but they keep like just a little bit of like fish netting on the edge, and it's just white, like bone white. Oh yeah, it's the prettiest look, man.
yeah.
It's so cool. It stops me in my tracks. I love that.
That's the look I've never gotten any dark pup ones. I've never gotten any of the crazy reds or the reds that stick, but that's the one thing that I've been able to pop out, and I've always kept that. And somehow, I think my entire collection has gone that route now. So
Nice.
yeah,
That's a
well,
beautiful look. That's a
it's
beautiful look.
It's pretty much the only look I have in this room now. So when it comes to
Well,
that,
it's funny you say that because I've got some that'll fire up and do that. And then when they do, they almost look like a jungle to me because then their pattern is just really bright yellow instead of like that buckskin. And so sometimes like I'll look at an animal and I'm like, you are black and yellow with white sides. What is going, what, just like it just doesn't make any sense. And then, check on them the next day and they look normal. I'm like, what is going on? They're so cool, man. I love them.
totally. So fair to say, would you call yourself more of a purist or more of a designer?
I would say definitely more of a
Okay,
purist.
so
That
so
that being said, I'm okay with the designer stuff. I think there's room for both, and my citrus tiger albino stuff is designer. So
that's where I was going. So because you're from the way you're talking about it, you definitely are a purist. You wouldn't mix your Papuans with anything else. You wouldn't mix
no,
your MIA line with your prettiest red man, right? For example,
no,
like you, that would be
heck
just
no,
blasphemy, right? So
100%.
now going to the citrus tiger. Citrus tiger, can you explain? Because that's something that is not available here. And I'll be honest,
Yeah,
it's not something I would do because it's to me it's like going to Don Patterson and buying his crazy Stonewash Diamond Jungle Jag. It is
yeah, that screen
the
jag stuff.
weirdest, craziest thing,
Yeah,
and it is one of the prettiest animal I've ever seen in my life. But I can't
yeah,
buy it because I prefer pure. But it is
yeah.
insanely pretty. So the citrus tigers kind of fall under that line. They're
hmm
gorgeous, but I don't think they're pure. And I'd love to. I've heard you say it a little bit at times, but I want to talk about it a bit more. So can you tell us? Just tell me the
Yeah,
story of it and
yeah.
what
So
you're doing with it.
I'll do my best to recount the history of it because it technically comes from Eric Burke by way of Will Bird, if I'm not mistaken. And Eric saw him selling a coastal carpet tiger that instead of it being the buckskin and like grays, it was like more black and yellow with high contrast on the sides, clean portholes on the side, and like this really unique gray wash. And so he ended up buying that, loved it so much when it showed up, he went back and bought the rest of the clutch, and then bred some together and produced what he then started calling citrus tigers.
So
And
what was it
they,
sold to him as though?
a coastal.
It was sold as a coastal. Okay.
Yeah, so sold him as a coastal. And it's you're looking at an animal with that typical sort of symmetrical head stamp where like you've got the line to the front. It's almost a 5 point star, but then the gaps in the middle, it almost makes like a face. Um, and then really great stripe, floating clean portholes on the side, and the dorsal stripe tends to be yellow, bordered by really rich blacks that then fades into that really like high contrast sort of gray wash on the side, and then you have those yellow portholes in the middle. And so if you were to go onto Eric Burke's website or if you were to ask to see like even my female that is het albino and has Darwin blood in her has that same very strong phenotype that's very high contrast look. It's very, very strong in the offspring. And so he bred some of them back together, found out the look kind of stayed consistent. And then at that point in time, he was very much into mixing and doing all sorts of morph crazy stuff. So he wanted to put the citrus tiger into a little bit of everything. And so at the time, I ended up acquiring a female citrus tiger that's het albino. And he hadn't made the visual albinos. He had just paired it to a Darwin, and you'd never know if you look at the original citrus tiger that is unadulterated by any other subspecies, and then this female, you wouldn't be able to say like, oh yeah, I see the Darwin influence now that this one is het albino. So it's a very potent phenotype.
Okay, so let me just stop you there. So did he breed the citrus tiger to a pure Darwin albino? Okay, and that's
Yes,
the
in
baby
order
you acquired.
Correct. Yes. So
Okay.
my stuff starts from there. The original Citrus Tiger stuff is pure coastal founder. Then Eric also started mixing it into other stuff. So there
Okay.
is pure coastal Citrus Tiger as far as we know, and then there's the cross stuff.
Okay, so the original stock, as far as we know, is pure coastal
As far as we know, I don't think Eric would throw the word pure in front of it because he will
because there's
openly admit
questionable lineage places.
Bingo, exactly.
Okay.
It's just you can't. At some point, there's question mark as far back
Yeah,
as you go,
there's
as far
there's
as
question marks on every single line, maybe except the MIA. And even then, can you
and
guarantee it
even
didn't come
then,
from a breeder in Australia that was,
exactly,
mixing his shit and then it came here, right? So to me, that's
exactly,
still a question mark.
correct.
So the
So
citrus
it's
tigers are pure, and are they called tigers because they come from Balin?
I believe so.
Oh,
Actually, I do
really?
believe.
Okay.
Yeah, I do
Okay, I
believe.
actually want to know. I'm curious on that one too.
Yeah, yeah. So I do think they check that box in the original stuff. Will Bird bred a Balin tiger in there. So if I'm not mistaken, Eric can definitely um, recount the story better, obviously. But so yeah, I brought that animal in, raised her up, and then I paired her with an animal that I got from Hesham Liz of Magic Carpet before he got out. Um, and he's a Northeast Coast guy. He's now into a lot of aquarium and fish stuff. But I got a possible super caramel striped albino from him that turned out to be just a striped caramel albino after the first breeding. And again, that citrus tiger phenotype very, very strong in the offspring, even when, you know, bred to an, albeit another striped, crossed coastal Darwin animal. You would think you're diluting down that stripe, you'd get a little less of the striping, but no, every single animal was insanely striped, good clean portholes, had that nice contrast, and then I had the wonderful pleasure of learning how to tell if there were caramel albinos and albinos in there because I could see that there was two different types of hets. There was the caramely brown ones, and then there was the normal black and gray ones. Um, but the albinos at first it was hard to tell, and then after they started having their sheds, I started being able to see like, okay, what color hues and where are these variations in these early stages. And it on some of them it still can be a little bit trippy, but it's just a beautiful look. The albinos hatch out with so much color. I have pure Darwin albinos in front of me, and I have citrus tiger albinos in front of me, and the color is just on another level of intensity. And I think that's just because when you're mixing coastal and other things in there and you're adding a lot, you can just really, really roll the dice on what colors are going to get inverted from albinism. So a high contrast animal thrown into albino, I think
Did
makes for
you
a
did
beautiful
you end up
albino.
acquiring? Sorry, did you end up acquiring more than one animal that was a citrus tiger head albino, or only one?
I want. I only have the one. I would love to get more. I would love to get the pure stuff too, just the straight coastal stuff, honestly. But I do actually have a female caramel citrus tiger that is just caramel paired to a citrus tiger. So she's, as far as that goes, straight coastal. And again, strong phenotype just with the caramel color. Beautiful animal. So I intend on keeping her in sort of line with just a straight coastal project. So I won't be pairing her into any of the albino stuff because I do want to make my own, just true blue coastal citrus tiger line that isn't crossed with albino. Um, but I'll be doing that by pairing her with an exotic tiger, probably. So,
So the reason I'm asking this, and so let's go down the ivory line. When you have ivory,
mm,
you wanted to bring zebra. You breed ivory with a zebra, and then all of a sudden you have a 50% ivory that's
hmm
zebra, right? And
hmm
then the only way to get back higher and higher is you breed it back to the pure. You get 75 and blah 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 blah. Now your citrus tiger went to an albino, which then brought
hmm
it down to really 50% blood of the citrus tiger. Then you've taken that's 50%, bred it out to a
completely unrelated.
caramel something albino.
Yeah,
So now you're
striped
down.
caramel albino.
So you're down to 25% citrus
Yeah.
tiger initial blood, and you're still getting that phenotype coming out, right?
Yeah, so that
Okay.
was the first time I paired her. And
That's
then this season, I paired her back to a male caramel albino citrus tiger from that first pairing.
okay. I was going to ask, are you planning to breed the babies back to the initial?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
So
because
that's what I did this year.
then you can amplify that phenotype.
Yes, yeah. And so, of course, everything like expected with, there's one asterisk though. There's a funky asterisk in this clutch. Um, I got one baby that has not a lick of striping to him. Just one. Out of all the times I've bred this citrus tiger animal, I've never gotten anything that doesn't have stripes. This animal not only doesn't have stripes, he's got spots, like blotches. Like think of the start of an inland's neck where there's like spots and then it kind of
Yep.
goes into whatever. That's what he looks like. And the color is just off the charts. Like it's way brighter. The yellow stands out way more on top of the orange, and it just doesn't make any sense phenotypically whatsoever. There's nothing about him striped whatsoever. So is that one little fluke because of that dilution? Probably, but it was interesting to see that when I paired, an offspring back, which if we're talking about a 50 percenter paired back to a 25 percenter, I don't know, I would have expected more animals that had less striping from that than
Yeah,
prior,
I
but
think
I
you've
don't know.
got two things going on there. You probably have the fact that striping is not genetic. Sorry, there's no genetic recessive stripes, right, when it comes to carpets. So
Hmm.
you're definitely polygenic right there. So is
Hmm.
it possible to get like banding? It always is. Even the two perfect
Yeah,
stripes will not always give it. And then you've got
100%.
the influence of the what else did you bring in there, right?
Right,
Like
right.
if you end up with 33% of the citrus tiger, you do have 66.6% that is
Yeah, at play.
other lineage, right? So all
Yeah,
that could produce all that weird phenotype. So it just I don't know. It
yeah.
becomes a cool aberrant pattern one that might be worth holding back and seeing what you can do with it.
I put him up on my website at a high price just to if somebody who's really determined and really needs him, like I'd love for you to have him if you love him that much. But if he doesn't go anywhere, I'm not gonna be upset at all.
I often do that with certain animals, and you know what? Often they leave, man. You got to be careful with that. You
Maybe
know,
we should go raise his price. No, it's
because
cool. I've had some funky stuff pop out this year, and it's been fun.
yeah, cool. Well, it's a cool project. It's different.
Yeah, man.
Let's see, what avenue did we go? How about the coastal route? You keeping any coastals at all?
Yeah, not as many, but I got some stuff here that I was producing some really nice Axanthic tigers 2 and 3 years ago, I think. Two, yeah, 2 years ago. I had two female tiger head Axanthics paired to a sibling male, and they crushed it. 2 years in a row, both females gave me nice big clutches, and I was able to produce a handful of really nice Axanthic tigers, and then get my feet wet in the Axanthic stuff. And in coastals, it was very apparent to see that there are visual hets. Um, so it is definitely an incomplete dominant, at least in coastals, in my opinion, because I would, het to het pairing, you get a couple that were crispy, clear visuals, some that obviously have the influence, but like it's kind of gradation and they're not quite as pronounced. And then you have some that after their first shed, there isn't a lick of Axanthic stuff in there. Like they're already showing browns and buckskins, and their eyes are copper. You can tell right away. Um,
I'd agree with you 100%. It's definitely incomplete dominant, and I'd say that it's the same thing for Popwins as well. It's 100% incomplete dominant.
I agree. And
Like,
actually this year, I did get a visual Axanthic Popwin dead in the egg from a pair of hets that I've done the pairing 3 times, never gotten a visual, but I've gotten animals that look a little bit funky from the rest, where if I like held normal Popwins to this one doesn't look the same. And so I've produced some that are like technically 66% possible hets, but they look different. And so even though I don't have a lot of the visual background production in those to confirm it, it does seem to make a lot of sense. But I've sent some animals to Nick that I thought for sure nice visual Axanthic tiger, and one he was like, yeah, I think this one's actually a head. I'm like, geez, that's blasphemous. I'm so sorry, but that's kind of wild. But then I look at this other one right here, I'm like, no, actually that makes a lot of sense because I had no idea what she was, so I said I'd keep her because she had great stripe, and now she looks just as good as another Axanthic tiger, and I still don't know if she's a visual or not. So that swimming pool is kind of fun to play in. But yeah, so I've got 1.2 visual Axanthic tigers. I've got one of my breeder female tiger head Axanthic still. I have uh, actually the only other coastals that I have are my pair of hypo tigers from Nick, and my male is a possible super hypo tiger. So I don't have very many coastals at the moment.
That's still a very nice group. The funny thing is, you say Axanthic tigers. It's by far one of my favorite morph, and it's a morph that I can almost. I don't think I've actually ever produced an Axanthic tiger. And the funny thing is, I have a super caramel Axanthic as my
Hmm.
main male, and it is the male that is, that perfect male that breeds everything. He'll breed 3 or 4 females a year, zero problems. He's done it many, many years. He's, but the problem is with a super caramel, you can't produce an Axanthic tiger, even if he's super caramel Axanthic, because
Yeah.
he gives caramel to everything. So I've produced a lot of Axanthic caramel tigers from breeding it to tigers, but I've never ever produced just the Axanthic tigers. And the caramel
Mm,
actually removes that gray look and gives a lot
yeah.
more of those creamy colors on it. And then when you
Hmm.
put the super caramel, it just that color is completely different, right? But I love the
Yeah.
Axanthic tigers, and I've been aiming towards going back, but trying to breed down to going with less morph is actually not that simple. So, and it
Yeah.
sounds
It's
it
hard.
sounds silly. I've been trying to get just that morph, and I've been struggling because I only have two. Well, I've got raise up, but I've only got two ready to breed male coastals, and I've got a super hypo tiger, uh, and he's not proven, but he was sold as a super hypo from UK. So if he guaranteed super hypo, I think it was from a super hypo to super hypo breeding, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
And that's super caramel Axanthic. Those are my two main males. So, but I just can't produce that Axanthic tiger, and it's so frustrating because that is one of the animals that it's truly a gorgeous, that gray on black look. Like, I
Yeah.
love it.
It's it's crispy, man. There's some really cool looks to it. And then I've produced some that have like a zigzaggy, sort of like barbed wire jagged stripe and some with clean stripes.
You see
Man,
that
they're
one right there?
so freaking pretty. Oh yeah, there he is.
So, well, actually, that one's a hypo caramel tiger.
Beautiful.
So
That's one of your females?
that's one of my females. She's I don't know how well you can see it there, but
Yeah,
I don't
she's
know. You can
glowing,
see it.
man.
Nice bright colors. She's had so I bred her last 2 years ago to I bred her to the super caramel Axanthic. You know, the clutch that everybody tells you don't mix hypo and caramel together.
Hmm.
I very well mixed it.
Yeah.
She had 10 eggs, 10 hatched, kept them back, held the entire clutch for a year. After a year, I spent 3 hours on the phone FaceTime with Nick Mutton, and he was gracious enough to help me identify every single baby.
Oh
It was a
man.
long phone conversation, long phone call. I have held back those babies now. They're almost 2 years old. They are still orange at 2 years old. They are the weirdest things. I have I have a couple that we consider super caramel, hypo tigers, het Axanthic now, and
Wow.
it's about like I have a couple. I've kept back all the best of the example, and the weirdest thing out of that clutch, 9 were hypos, one was not hypo. That was my
Ooh.
odds, and I only got 2 super caramels out of the entire clutch.
Oh.
So it was one of those things. Like, the odds sometimes work well in certain ways, and then horrible, and everything else is
Yeah.
caramel, right? Because the male was super caramel.
Right.
So
Wow.
it's been anyway. That's so we'll see where that. My goal is to eventually have super caramels, super hypos, breeding to super
Hmm.
caramels, super hypos. So there's no confusion. They just all are.
Right.
Even
No
though
debate.
everybody tells you not to do it, I did
So,
it.
somebody's got to do it, right? Might as
Oh,
well.
it's just you got to hold back everything and
Yeah, if you really
raise
want to
them
be
up a
sure.
year or two to really know what you're looking at. But Coastals are
Yeah,
definitely they're my passion project. They're the ones that I really love. I love their looks. I love they're like the right size. They're the ones I like.
they're a ton of
So
fun, man. I absolutely love them. Couldn't agree more.
yeah, all right. How about diamonds? What are you keeping diamond wise?
I only dipped into diamonds last year for the first time. Better late than never. But I got a pair of Gary Valle line diamonds. Um, they're 2022 animals, so they're taking, like weaned and small rats now. They're growing up, but I'm keeping them differently than my other carpets. They're in enclosures with an overhead light bulb lamp, and then at night they're just ambient instead of, any sort of heat tape or heat panel or anything like that. And I keep them in glass tanks that are very heavily ventilated, so they are getting all that cold air whipping around every night. So they're a lot of fun, man. I love those snakes. They're so beautiful.
They're in the same room though,
Yes, they are.
so same
They're
ambient
still young.
temperature.
Yep, yep. And when it gets really warm in here, I do shut off their overhead lights. So we've had some pretty warm days where those are just, they didn't need anything. But yeah, the rest of the year I can keep the ambient into the 70s and stuff so that that basking light doesn't erase their thermal gradient, and then still have temps drop low enough at night where they're doing just fine. And
So
they've been great.
so are you thinking? So okay, this is hear me out. Are you of the mentality that you think you should cool down neonates, cool down 1 year olds, 2 year olds, 3 years old, do the whole breeding cool down so that they're ready for it? Or are you the mentality of just don't just dip it a little bit, but keep feeding them year round until they're like 3 years old and then start introducing them to get them ready for breeding for the fourth or
I
fifth year?
I cycle every animal in this room like an adult. The exception being for the babies because they're in a baby rack. They still have a little bit of like ambient warmth in there, so maybe they're not getting quite as cold. And if there's one that's a little skinny, I will still happily feed that one throughout the winter just to make sure it's not dropping off too much. But yeah, man, the last few years I've cycled babies through the winter just like the adults. They get the same temperature variation where it drops at night, comes back up during the day, a lack of food. Um, and I've what I've found is that it's curbed my old, trajectory of making really large animals that I used to just feed year round that would get, 7, 8 feet, like jungles that were way too big and stuff. And so what I've found is I've got animals that um, are never picky about feeding. They are really lean but strong, and their feeding response is fantastic every single time. And I just feel like it's got to be healthier for their organs to have that little bit of a break. And then in terms of if they're going to be a breeder down the line, a baby that has gone through the acute stress of a cooler, less ideal temperature and less food availability is going to be much more robust and ready for that come adulthood, and it's not going to be such a biological shock to them. I do think it makes for a healthier animal. That being said, I know plenty of people that don't do that and have just as much success with longevity and healthy animals. So I think there's different ways to do it with success. In my head, it seems a little more natural. So it helps with food cycling. So I like to do that a lot. I like to food cycle seasonally and consider that part of a way to add some enrichment into their existence. So not every it's not like a calendar year is just feeding all the same. It's different every season, every year. So they're always guessing and always thinking.
Yeah, I used to do like I used to feed anything 2 years or younger. I feed it year round. I used to just keep the heat on, even if the ambient would dip, they would still have their 86 to 88 hotspot even at night, so that I could
Hmm.
keep feeding them and getting them bigger and getting them there faster. But I'd say in the past 5 years, every single thing except Neos. It's funny because like so the babies that were they're what like between 1 and 3 months old now. right? Those I'll keep in the baby racks that are in the 6 quart tub. They're going to keep their heat. Their
Hmm.
heat will drop down by 2 degrees at night, like their hotspot. I guess the
Sure.
rest of the room is still going to cool down in winter, right? But
Yep.
yeah, I'm a big fan, and I honestly I love the idea of not feeding anything in the entire room for like a good 4 months in a row, right? Like
Uh,
it
Such a nice
makes
break.
it's it's like summer is crazy, right? Because you've got all the
Yeah.
babies, you've got so much feeding all the time. The babies are so
Yeah.
time confusing. Then winter arrives, it's like, well, nothing's eating, nothing's pooping, nothing to
Yep.
clean. Life is good.
Yep.
And by that point, you've
Yep.
sold off most of your babies. You're down to just like maybe 5 to 10% of your holdbacks that are in the baby rack, and that's about it. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I've been doing it that way, and I'm also of the thought that I think their lifespan is considerably longer when you shut them down for that long.
I
So
agree. So I will say I know that Nick does that. A lot of breeders do that, and I got a proven breeder, albino Darwin, from Nick on breeding loan 2 years ago, and she's a 2014 animal. And when he sent her to me, I was like, "This girl's proven." She was small, bro. And he's like, well, I have so many and there's only so much demand. I don't breed every female every year. So if it's a female I'm not going to breed, she's not going to get fed as she's going to breed that year. And I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And so, of course, first thing she did was latched onto my bicep and gave me a nice bruise and was like letting me know that she wants to eat. And so I fed her a
Nick
ton, but
doesn't
she didn't
feed me.
really. Yeah, it's basically she's like, he doesn't feed me. And so I fed her really well, and yeah, she put on some girth and whatnot, but she laid a phenomenal clutch, slimmed right back down, and dude, she stayed nice and small, but she had no problem with the clutch, and it was a big clutch, and she did great, and she did it twice, and the second time was even better. And in comparison, one of my favorite jungles that I've ever had, I killed because in my opinion, I overfed her in the first few years of her life and caused irreversible damage by not giving her a break, by not giving her seasons, by not giving her digestive system that sort of like ebb and flow. Because we now know that these snakes they have to shrink and regrow organs and they go through a lot of physiological changes, and so it takes a lot out on their body. And so if they're constantly in this digest, eat, digest. It's like running a battery of a car at full speed all the time and never giving it a chance to recharge. And so she didn't see her 11th birthday. And she got big and just one day had like kidney failure, died in her enclosure. And she was every bit of 8 feet and as thick around as a Coke can on a light day. You know what I mean? So now I have animals that hit that 5 year mark and they're nowhere near that big. And I do think there's a lot to be said to that end and their longevity because these animals should hit 15, 20, even if they're breeding. No problem, in my opinion.
So I have that one female that's similar to your story. I've got a 2016 female jungle, which I actually had bought for my son as a pet. So he would just feed her all the time, and she grew and grew and grew. And after maybe 3 and a half years, he kind of grew tired of it, and I just brought it in with my collection. That female is 8 feet, maybe 8.5 feet. So she's 9.5 years old now. She has
Hmm.
given me 7 clutches now, 7 in a row, and I have tried multiple times to not breed her. Actually, only I'm saying multiple times, twice. And even the years that I did not breed her, she still produced. Once was a full clutch of slugs, and once was a full clutch of slugs with 3 babies that were fertile, and she did not see
Jeez.
a male for, I think I had calculated to 13 months. And
Wow.
at first I was like, maybe it's Partho, but it was not, which was the coolest thing. One of the babies was Zebra, and she was paired to a Zebra
Ah,
the year before, and
neat.
she's just a regular jungle, which proves
Right.
to me that they can keep sperm from the previous year, which I don't
Oh
know how
yeah.
often it's been documented, but she did it. So I don't know. That
That's
girl
awesome.
just has to go every year because she's
She's
going to
just
go
so
one way or the
big.
other. But
It's kind of like retics. You hear a lot of retic guys talk about their animals will do that, and it's almost detrimental to try and inhibit
oh,
some of those
it's
animals at their size.
and you know the size of her clutches? Largest
What,
clutch
40 eggs?
she's had 49 eggs, and out of 49, 46 were fertile. That's her biggest clutch. She's had about four clutches above the 35 mark. And
Unreal.
finally, now I've been slowly slimming her down, right? But she's still a gigantic long snake, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
now she has clutches. This year she had, I don't know, 22, 26, give or take. So they're going down, but she's also on her seventh clutch, right? So that is
Yeah.
the most prolific animal. That one animal I think has popped out more babies than just about
That's impressive.
any jungle I know. But anyway, um, so now my
Very
fear is how
impressive.
long will she live? Right? She's a 2016, but she's a monster, and she's the only monster I have in this room because
Yeah.
she was overfed. I like blaming it on my son. I'm not gonna lie though. I enjoyed spending time with him and feeding it with him, right? Because it gave me the
Yeah.
that interaction with him. But
Sure.
yeah,
Yeah, I guess
I
time will
fucked
tell.
up one animal. I can tell you that. At least
Uh,
one, anyway.
yeah, yeah. I have my first albino Darwin girl lives in my freezer because I got her up to a absolutely enormous size by her third birthday, and then she blew up with a huge tumor in her, and just like game over.
I think tumors, though, that might not necessarily be related to food, though, because tumors and cancer
Yeah,
is insanely prolific in carpets. Like I've
yeah.
lost, I don't know, man. I'd say 5% of carpets will eventually die of cancer easily. Like I've had a good
I
amount.
have heard a lot about that. Yeah,
So like and it's not just one type. Like I've had them in just about every, whether it
yeah.
be Darwins or coastals or I don't
Hmm.
know. I've seen that, and it's for me anyway. The lump tends to be very often more like in the back end, in the like 5 or 6, either the cloaca or 5 to 8 inches before the cloaca in that region. So I don't know, colonish area. So
Interesting.
I don't know. I've seen it way too often. So
I've read a lot of instances of cancer in carpet pythons for sure. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I don't know. It makes you wonder if it's just the lineages that we've got because we don't get anything new, and we're just pushing that out, right? It just happens we got
Yeah,
those defective genes and we keep pushing them out to everybody else. I don't
yeah.
know.
Over time, they weed themselves out. You know, if they're not strong, they're gonna selectively out themselves.
Yeah. So let's go into inlands. You got any inlands?
I have one. I bought one that was supposed to be a female about 4 years ago, and despite how much I fed, it wasn't growing, and I was like,
It's a
I know
male.
these are quite dimorphic, and yeah, sure enough, I popped it again, and it was a boy. So I have a male who's 4.5 years old, with no female for him, and it's like, oh, well, I'll just go get a female, but where do I put her?
Oh, fair enough.
So yeah, I that's a species I would love to reproduce. I just need to get a baby and raise one up, I think, and just bite the bullet and do it.
Yeah, I've done that a couple times. I've raised up 3 females that turned out to be males. So by the time I
Ugh.
finally got one that turned out to be a female, I think my male is, what is it, 2014. My male's a
Oh man.
2014. So it it took a while for him to finally have a girlfriend, but this year was my luck. And I'm curious to tell me what you think about this after your experience. So Papuans are one of the best baby feeders. They all eat like crazy, zero problem. How about you?
Yep.
Okay, coastals overall pretty good. Jungles pretty
Yep.
good. Same thing.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Anything albino horrible.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. I'm curious. I'm just going to see if we have the same thing. So
Yeah.
anything that
Albino
has
Darwins are real finicky.
anything with albino, like even if it's an outcrossed albino, I've always had they're just crappy feeders. They take forever. I'm trying to
I
think
have
of what
I
else.
have a couple of my albino citrus tigers are making me wait
Yeah,
this year
you're
too.
having
Two
a
or
hard
three of
time.
them.
So inlands, by far, right now, the worst carpets I've ever had to get started. They
Interesting.
they're almost a month and a half, a month and almost 2 months. I have gotten two to eat out of 10, and one
Ooh.
was a live ASF after trying everything, and the other one was using a frozen thawed ASF rolled in chick down, put inside a deli cup overnight in the tub, and that one I got
Mm,
a second one. So I'm at two that I've had one meal, and
yikes.
and I know just about every trick. Like I've dealt with this often enough, but right now,
Yeah.
worst carpet out there so far for feeding.
Interesting. How big
So
are the babies when they hatch? Are they exceptionally small?
no, they're
No,
they're they're
average 20
they're
grams ish.
similar.
Yeah.
Maybe a tiny bit smaller, but maybe in the 15. But they're not that small. Like nothing alarming.
I'm just wondering if they're naturally drawn to like skinks and geckos, similar to Antaresia. If maybe they were on like the smaller end of hatchlings that prey was limited, but if they like that ASF and they can eat that,
Oh,
then
they can definitely eat it. They can eat. Like most carpets can eat something way too big for them, right? Like often I'll give
oh
them
yeah.
you give them pinky rats, and a neo can take down a pinky rat right off the bat. It looks like it's going to explode, but they do it.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
often try it. If they take it, great. Like I don't care if they can take it down. If they can't, they won't eat it, but they usually
Right.
can.
Yeah. Mine can usually take stuff that leaves a massive lump, but that's interesting that inlands are like that. I guess I need to. Do other people have similar experiences with them like that?
So I'm talking from one clutch, one experience, right? I've
Hmm.
heard Julander talk about the fact that they're a little bit harder.
Hmm.
That's so I've heard a bit about it, but not much more than that. So I'm
Okay.
curious, but
Yeah, I only have my one male, so I can't speak to anything on the breeding, but it's interesting. It's really interesting that they're finicky like that.
so
Huh.
changing subject here. If you decide to go down the becoming a breeder full time,
Hmm.
where do you see your collection going?
Just scaling
What's
up.
all the
Staying
same
with
things scaling
Morelia.
up?
Yeah, I mean Morelia would stay the bulk of it, but um I think I would probably add a couple colubrid species, like some to like some fun stuff that I enjoy that will also bring people in colubrids, whether they're old schoolers or new to colubrids, over into the carpet world, because there's a lot of similarities in terms of like rat snakes and carpet pythons are, they fill a similar niche in a lot of ways. But yeah, if it were me, I would probably scale up um, 4 times, maybe 5 times. Cover the spread, still have all the carpets, and my bread and butter would be jungles, coastals, and Papuans, and then a few clutches of Brettles, a few clutches of inlands, a couple diamonds, some novas, and then I'd have my work forever until I die project with the Apadora, the womas on the side. I would definitely add more Australian pythons. I would add rough scales. I would add chondros. Um, yeah, I really like the Indonesian and Australian and Papuan stuff.
Yeah, very nice. I think your collection is probably very similar to me.
Yeah.
I've got a trio of. One second, let's see if you can see them. I don't know if you can see them up there. If you look in the top, there's a trio
Hmm.
of rough scale in there, and they're I can't separate them. I don't know why I keep everything separate, but for some
Yeah.
reason I put those. I had two, and then all of a sudden they turned out to be two females instead of being a pair, which was not terrible. And then I
Right.
got the male, and I'm like, I couldn't find another cage, so I just put them together, and they do amazing together. They're just a pain in the ass when you got to feed them because their feeding response are insane, and you always got to separate them,
Yeah.
which is why I hate cohabbing. Um,
Yep.
but I purposely put them in a cage where there is that pass through. I don't know if you could see it, so they can go from the two halves. And so whenever they're in separate, I just cut it, and then I take one of the snake out, whoever has, and then I got to feed him in a bin. It's a huge pain in the ass, but I love the idea of having them all commingling together all the time, and they're so arboreal, beautiful animal to have. Like
Yeah.
they're just chilling up there, moving around.
Yeah.
I don't know if you
I
can.
love them. They're stunning. The first time I got to
Really,
hold one was at Matt Minatola's place up in Philly, and that was amazing.
yeah, should be my first year trying to breed them this year. So they're what are they? 2021s. So
Okay.
I think they're
Nice.
ready. They're big. One of the females much bigger than the other. She's a good 6 feet, and
Oh yeah, she's
like
ready then.
the size of a good carpet. So the other one's a bit
She could
smaller,
go.
maybe 5 feet. So I'm not sure. And the male's about
Eh,
5 feet as well. So
you'd be surprised.
yeah,
I've seen those breed successfully at moderate sizes.
yeah. Well, we'll see. I'm going to try them for the first time this year, and my plan is to just breed them like any other carpet. I'll
Hell
separate
yeah.
them
I
when the
wish you the
cooling
best of luck.
season comes. Oh, I hope
Right.
so, man.
Oh,
So
that'd be so cool. Those are awesome snakes. I
we'll
need those
see.
in my life, definitely.
Their prices have calmed down too, so they're
Yeah,
attainable now.
yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot more people have put emphasis in working with them. So there's a few more people producing them too. So yeah.
Yeah. Um, where to go now? So, anything else you want to acquire? What's your? Actually, you know what? There is one thing I want to talk to you about. Nova Guineas. So,
Yeah.
what is a Nova Guinea? Is a new Nova Guinea a West Papuan or a Papuan carpet, or is it just a line of Papuans? Are we considering them a different subspecies? What's the? Because I hear about it. I've never seen them in person. To
hmm
me, they come from the island of Papua, right?
hmm hmm
So wouldn't they be a Papuan carpet?
Yeah. So I don't know if it's like published, but they are genetically the exact same thing. There is no DNA differentiation between them and Papuan carpets. But
So
that
it's a
being
line.
said, probably we don't really know though, because unfortunately the guy who brought him in, he has since passed on, and all we have is the story that they came in, and they came in a crate that or a bag or whatever that said Nova Guinea. And allegedly, they come from just over the divide of the political line. So if you look at the island and how it splits right down the middle politically, east and west, allegedly, the ones that came in came over from the other side of the border, but it's been said that it's really dangerous and hard to go over there. And then if you go look on iNaturalist, there is one sighting from over there, and it doesn't look like the sort of reduced pattern, sort of natural jag look that we really focus on with them. Um, so I have a pair of them that have that natural jag look where it's really reduced pattern. The back is bald, all of the pattern is squashed down to the flanks, and it literally just looks like a natural colored jaguar. Um, the floating star head stamp and everything, but obviously not fluorescent and bright yellow or whatever. But in a same clutch of those, you'll get what looks to be a normal banded sort of Papuan carpet. So is it a morph? Is it a naturally occurring phase? You know, I don't I don't think it's been done to crank that out and find out, but I know that my buddy Travis Johnson has pretty much all of Nick's breeding stock of those from like all three generations, and then some that he did some generational inbreeding with cross. So I gotta talk to him and see if he's done any test breeding to see like if the banded ones can produce that sort of natural jag look, if it's like a natural morph. Is it a recessive? Is it a line? Like what's going on? Because Nick didn't do any like test breeding to tease out whether or not it was a morph or anything. He just bred a few generations of them and then moved them on, sort of deal.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. Actually, I didn't actually know that the genetic test was done to see if they were similar or not. So, would you ever breed your Nova Guineas to any of your Papuan projects? Or are you going to keep it separate?
I think I would.
Yeah.
I think I would. I'm very curious. I really would.
Because I mean, that would still be a pure line to me, or
They come from the same
pure,
island.
exactly, right?
They come from the same island, and if the genetics are the same, to me, you just
No,
gave me the roadmap to answer some questions, Like now I just need to, okay, so we're gonna take a Nova. I've got a Nova male and a Nova female. Well, obviously I want to pair them together and see if I get any of the banded types out of pairing these two natural looking Jag look. But then I'd also like to see if I pair one to a West Papuan carpet, as it were, would I get any unusual animals? Would I get that natural Jag look, or would they all be sort of banded normal looking? And regardless of the results, keep all those babies back, do some more test breeding the next run again, and see what happens. But yeah, I do want to explore that avenue and see what it goes down. What's it about? I want to know.
so I'm gonna have to push it just a tiny bit further. So if you breed a Nova to Papuan, would you breed a Nova or a Papuan to a Darwin?
Oh,
You said very specifically that genetically, if they're the same, you would do it.
yeah, yeah. I know I did. I
Your
left that
theory
open,
doesn't
didn't
work
I?
now, eh?
Yeah, no, you're right, and it also would then
And you wouldn't
incorporate
do it.
The Cape York's animals. No, no, and yeah, that's probably a line that I don't know if I could cross. Um, that being said, you know, new taxonomy, technically an albino granite would be pure.
The funny thing is, I bred for albino granites for a long time, and I finally produced
Mhm.
one 2 years ago. And I've slowly been getting rid of all the mutt
Yeah,
uh, projects like that, and I'm like, well, technically, it's pure, technically, but
right.
it doesn't feel pure at all.
No, it feels real
it,
dirty.
that's a good way to put it. My albino granite feels real dirty, but technically it's pure, which
I
really
feel like
I could never put the pure to that animal.
I feel like if I was caught in the act of introducing those pairs together, I would jump like, "No, you didn't. Nope, nope, wasn't me. Nope, I didn't do it." I'd be like really embarrassed, like, "Oh no." Oh
It's
man.
one look I always loved and I wanted to do, so I did do it, and I do have the albino. I have a little albino
They're
granite
so
female. So
beautiful. They're so beautiful, man. Like every time Philip Starkey out in Germany posts his albino zebras and albino granites, I'm like, I get it. I get it. I totally see
yeah,
it.
they're gorgeous animals. All right, well, Riley, let's see. One last question. If you could say anything to your younger self, any advice, what would you say? Let's end it with
Oh,
that.
brother. I love going over that hypothetical in my head, man. I think about that on the reg. Like if I could go back and because dude, if you saw a snapshot of me as like 15, 16 years old compared to now, completely night and day. I had long hair. I skateboarded. I was a little street rat, like, you know, barely getting by in school, all that stuff. Did not care to like open my horizons or anything. And I was just a little grungy street rat. If I could go back and tell myself, like, dude, you're gonna find something even more exciting that you're even more passionate about. Start now. I wish I would have gotten into this stuff like and stuck with it younger because I got in young, but I didn't really like I didn't let my curiosity drive me to find the hobby until I was like 22. If I'd have found it when I was younger, I feel like I would have gone through a lot of my growing pains that I did earlier on and I could be leaps and bounds ahead of where I would love to be personally with this right now. That being said, would I have met my wife? Would I have, met Todd Dyer? Would I have, would I have ended up with carpet pythons? Who knows? So I do love the trajectory of mine, but man, if I could go back and tell myself like get some snakes sooner, I would have.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
Perfect, Riley. A million. Thank you for coming on. Can you tell everybody what if they want to buy a steak from you or reach out to you? Where do they go?
Yeah, absolutely. RileysReptiles.com is super easy. I'm also on Morph Market. You can find me all over social media, Instagram, YouTube, all that good stuff. Just Riley's Reptiles. Look me up. I'm always happy to chat, answer questions, whether you bought a snake from me or not. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a good time to be with reptiles. So hit me up if you have any questions. Love to talk.
Uh, you rock, Riley. Thanks. Honestly, wealth of knowledge. Appreciate it. For everybody, if you want to reach out to Michael, which did not make his appearance today, Michael Gillian on Facebook. Myself is Dominic Cabano on Facebook, or Dom's Reptiles on Instagram. For the podcast, it's Reptile Rejects just about everywhere. It's on YouTube. It's on all the podcast networks. Let's go with Apple, Spotify. There's the Google one, whatever it is. There's the Amazon one, whatever it is. Subscribe, say you like it, all that kind of fun stuff. We'd appreciate it. And again, if anybody wants to go to the Canadian Reptile Breeders Expo, it's the biggest show in Canada. It's freaking amazing. It is the one and only show I go to every year. I will be there. Michael will not, because he lives on the other end of the beautiful Canadian landscape. But I will be. And if anybody wants, put in comments in any of the platforms. We'll pick a few people at random and give some pair of tickets for that. To everybody, gigantic thank you. Have yourself a great night, and we'll see you next week. Take care, guys.